long. Unfortunately, I don't have a gameplay video for you this week. I've been too busy kind of just tinkering around with decks, trying to figure out what I want to play for the Mythgard Open on the 20th, so as a result, I didn't really put anything together to really show you guys. So, you know, if I can't give my due diligence, I'm not going to just, you know, throw something up there just for the sake of putting up a video. So no gameplay video this week, and maybe not next week. So I might be taking a couple weeks off on making gameplay videos. But in any case, while we're talking about the Mythgard Open, I figured, you know what? Why don't I come to you and share some advice if you've never played the Conquest style format before. So let me give you a few pieces of advice. 3 pieces of advice, actually. If you've never done Conquest before and you're trying to figure out how you should approach your deck building as to what you're going to play and whatnot. So, and understand I'm coming at you as somebody who has experience in this format, but I don't consider myself, you know, a pro or an expert or anything like that. I'm not the most competitive of players. I honestly don't expect that I'll do great. I expect that I'll have a good time playing. But yeah, I don't expect to be, you know, top 8 or anything like that. So, you know, take my advice as you will. But anyway, the Conquest, the way it works is you bring 3 decks. There are no hard color restrictions, but the amount of cards you can have, the normal restrictions that apply to one deck apply to all 3 at the same time. So, for instance, if you want to play Daring Trapezist, which is a common in a mono red deck, you can play up to 4 copies of it because it's common. You can play 4 copies. But if you want to also play something like red-orange, you cannot play 4 copies of it. You can play 0. But if you only put 2 Daring Trapezes in your mono red deck, you can then put 2 in the red-orange deck. So, you know, the deck restrictions which would normally apply to one deck now apply to all 3. Hope that makes sense for you. I hope I'm explaining that well. Also, you cannot have the same path in any of the decks, so all 3 decks have to have a different path, and also all 3 decks have to have a different power. So this is preventing players from just bringing, you know, the 3 elite top tier decks in the format and just everybody playing the same thing. It really forces you to think about your decisions and what you want to do. So with that in mind, I forgot the most important part actually. Before the start of each match, you're going to pick one of your opponent's decks to ban. As I understand it, I've never done an inclined tournament. I've done them through 983 Media before they had the inclined tourneys, but you get to choose one deck to ban of your opponent's, and conversely, your opponent chooses one of yours that they get to ban. So, you know, I believe it is an open deck list from what I've understood. So you'll get to see what your opponent's playing and then choose which of their decks you don't want to face. So you'll get to ban that. And then in order to win the match, you have to win with both of your decks. So if you win the first round with your deck, you have to play the other one that's in play. If you lose, you can play it the same one still, or you can play your other one. But you have to win with 2 different decks, and you're banning one of your opponents. So with that in mind, the first piece of advice I'm going to give you is don't forget that you get to ban a deck every match. Which, you know, duh, it's in the rules. Like, what am I talking about? But really, think of this for a second. If you have a deck that does really well against mid-range and aggro, but does really kind of poorly against the yellow whatever control decks, you can say, you know what? If I see green-yellow, blue-yellow, any of those, you know, big yellow control decks, I'm just going to ban it. You can ban, you know, a particular style deck every time. That's part of the format. If you hate playing against something like Allfather's Horn, you can say, you know what, whenever I see that horn, it's banned. You can do that as well. Both are legitimate strategies. And so you can choose your decks based on the knowledge that, you know, if you're going to ban a control deck every time, maybe you can tech your decks a little more against mid-range, a little more against the aggro, and chances are you won't be facing many control decks. Also, conversely, don't forget the opponent is going to ban one of yours too. So maybe you want to do something like, well, you know what? I'm going to bring, green-yellow because everybody hates green-yellow. So that's most likely going to get banned. And then the other 2 decks that I have are the ones I really want to play. So I'll just bring this one as bait, have the opponent ban it. I'll get to play the 2 that I want to play. And if they don't ban it, they ban one of the other ones, well, then I get to play with one of the best decks in the format. So, yeah. Hey, use that to your advantage, knowing that you'll get to ban a deck every single match. The second piece of advice I'm going to give you is that it's generally better to bring 3 good decks than 1 great one and 2 kind of okay ones. Because like I just told you, your opponent's going to get to ban one of your decks. So if you go all in on one deck and say to yourself, oh, if I get to play this deck, things are going to be sweet. Well, if they see that you have one deck that's clearly better than the others, then guess what? You're going to get it banned every single time. So my advice would be to kind of, spread the power level out among your decks and just bring 3 good ones instead of just 1 great one. Also, we talked about the deck building restriction before, where you can only have 4 of Daring Trapezist, or whatever the normal restriction is. And I wouldn't say, well, you know what, I want to play 2 decks that have red in it, so I'm going to just take 2 Trapezists out of this deck, put 2 in there, I'll just replace those 2 or something out. Don't water your decks down just to spread out your minions to kind of do what you want to do. I would just put 3 good solid decks, even if they are a little bit different from each other. So yeah, this is a format where you really have to think, where you really have to make some tough choices when deciding what you want to play. And then finally, the third piece of advice I'm going to give you is that if you are a home brewer, this is the format for you. Don't be afraid to brew something. There are basically 2 ways that people win these types of tournaments. One is they bring the best deck and they just outplay everybody, even though everybody's gunning for them. Or the other way that they win is they bring the deck that nobody's expecting and they end up doing really well because, well, nobody saw it coming. This format really kind of makes it tough to do the former because, like I said, if they see you have a tier 1 elite deck, there's a good chance it's going to get banned each round. And for something that's a home brew that they're not used to seeing, maybe you can slip it right through. And also, like I said, you get to choose which of your opponent's decks to ban. So if it's normally a little bit janky on the ladder, because, it doesn't do well against control, or it doesn't do well against this particular deck, don't forget, you can ban that deck and kind of turn the odds in your favor. So yeah, that's just, 3 little bits of advice that I'm going to get you. So those 3 little bits of advice, again, are don't forget that you get to ban a deck every match. What was the second one? I'm honestly, bring 3 good decks instead of just 1 great one. And finally, don't be afraid to brew. And the other misconception a lot of people have in these types of tournaments is, well, all I'm going to face are really good decks all day. I'm going to just face all type 1 decks and whatnot. Even in tournaments that I've played, like through 983 Media and whatnot, when they hosted these kinds of tournaments, that was never the case. Like, they had less restrictions than this style of Conquest does. And even then, people don't just all bring, the absolute best decks to the tournament. There's still people who, are doing it because they want to win with their decks. They bring their pet decks along to see how it does and whatnot. So you're going to get a whole variety, and I think this format really encourages that a lot. So yeah, don't be afraid to sign up. You have to be silver by the date of the tournament. You have to be at least silver on the ladder in order to join. And it's like what, 1,200 coins in order to join, which is like a day's worth of grinding to get in. So that's actually pretty cheap. So I encourage you all to play and put 3 of your best decks together, and I'll look forward to facing you March 20th, the first Mythgard Open. So excited about it. So that's going to be it for me today. If you have any other advice you'd like to offer up, please feel free to leave a comment below. And also, if you have any questions, you can leave a comment on this video too. And if I'm not the most diligent about checking comments and whatnot, but I'll try and pay attention to this one. If you guys have any questions, I'll try and help you out. So that's going to be it for me today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.